Okay, it's time now for our daily look at the morning papers here in France. And for that, I'm joined on set by our press reviewer, Florence Villeminot.
Hi, Thomas.
Hello. And Florence, the papers are reacting to that first left-wing presidential debate between those seven candidates. And the general feeling is that it was pretty underwhelming.
That's right. French papers aren't that impressed with what happened last night. Let's start with the more neutral business paper, Les Echos. They say the first debate was without much depth. It was missing some excitement, some zingers, some passion. Instead, the seven candidates were very polite. They stuck to their positions without spilling into controversy, but you really get the impression that Les Echos was hoping the gloves were going to come off a little bit more.
And most papers are saying there was no real clear winner, no one really stood out.
That's right. Let's take a look at Le Parisien. They say, look, there was no decisive winner here. It was just a warm-up round. And just like for the conservative primary, Le Parisien actually graded the seven candidates according to 5 criteria. So precision, style, respectfulness, combativeness, and those that had the best soundbite. Now, you can see here their grading system. And if you take a closer look, no one actually won. There was a tie at the top, I guess you could say. Manuel Valls and Benoît Hamon both tied in first place with 7 out of 10 points.
And what's particular about this primary is that it's just for the left wing, but there are some major players from the left that aren't taking part in these 4 televised debates.
Absolutely. Now, the whole point of this primary was to keep the left united in the face of the rising of the right, the far right and the Conservative Party. But several key candidates are sitting out. Chief among them, you have Jean-Luc Mélenchon from the far left and Emmanuel Macron, who technically isn't on the left or the right, but he's clearly a challenger. And you can see this cartoon in Aujourd'hui en France, Le Parisien, which shows them watching the debate together. How sweet. And you can see Mélenchon saying they're all terrible. So talking about the 7 candidates. And Macron saying, well, for once, we agree on something.
And Florence, what about the right-wing press? How have they been reacting to this first left-wing debate?
Well, they weren't impressed either, to say the least. Le Figaro is incredibly harsh today in their editorial. Essentially what they're saying is, look, there was no winner last night. There were only losers. They say the debate was dull, laborious, but according to Le Figaro, that's logical because the left is running out of steam. Now, what Le Figaro really does is tear apart the economic ideas, the economic programs that we saw coming out last night. The solution, essentially, according to all these candidates, is to spend more. And you can see Le Figaro is calling this economic reverie. They're living in another dimension in zero gravity, apesanteur. It's as if they're, astronauts kind of floating around in space. They're clearly not living in reality on Earth.
Well, one issue that came up in last night's debate is the idea of a universal basic income. It's an idea that's been tested in other parts of the world. The left-leaning daily Libération has taken a closer look. Florence, tell us more.
That's right. What is this thing, the revenu universel, this universal basic income? Well, you can see Libération wondering. It's taking a closer look. Is this essentially just a golden ticket for everyone to collectively veg out? And you can see that photo there of that hammock. Must admit, looks quite a nice place there. Now, Libération points out that the right is really outraged, saying this is going to cost a lot of money. But it points out that it's been tested elsewhere in the world, for instance, in the United States. In Denver and in Seattle, it was tested in the late 60s, and the results showed a real improvement in education levels in those cities. Canada also tried it out in the 70s in the state of Manitoba and saw an improvement in people's health. Now, these days, other countries are tempted, like in Finland and in the Netherlands, while other countries are completely opposed to it. Recently, there was a referendum in Switzerland, and people rejected it outright.
Well, now that this first left-wing debate is done and dusted, the first round of the primaries is slated for January the 22nd. What happens between now and then?
Well, a lot of things are going to happen. There are 2 more debates between now and then, so candidates are going to be really busy. But Le Figaro reports on an interesting characteristic of this campaign. Now, the schedule is really tight for these candidates, and none of them have any money, or at least they're not spending any money. You can see they're talking about the challenge of a low-cost campaign. Now, this might be really surprising compared to other countries. In the U.S., you see candidates pouring money into their campaign. But even here in France, we've seen the Conservatives and even Emmanuel Macron spending more money than these left-wing candidates. So Le Figaro wonders what's going on. Maybe they're trying to set themselves apart, show that they're not spending so much money. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. In any event, they're holding really low-key meetings. There's nothing massive. And in this article, it points out that even Manuel Valls, he was spotted taking the train to his first campaign meeting, rolling his little suitcase behind him. That's a quote from this article. And the guy was Prime Minister. Le Figaro says this is surreal, and they point out that he was even traveling in second class.
Goodness me. Well, finally, Florence, you have a story that's very much not on this planet. It's in outer space, and that's, of course, about the French astronaut Thomas Pesquet.
That's right. Thomas Pesquet is definitely a national hero. People are fascinated with him. Maybe it's because things are so bad here on Earth. Anyway, anytime he lifts his little finger, it makes the news. And today it's well worth it, though. He's about to do his first spacewalk outside the International Space Station at 1:05 p.m. So tune in. Scary stuff. Now, he's only the fourth French person to do it. And if you want to know more about his mission, do check out Le Figaro. They have this little graphic here explaining exactly what he's going to do. As far as I understand, he's going to install a battery on the space station. Doesn't seem that glamorous, but this battery is the size of a fridge, and it is in outer space after all.
I'm sure it's very glamorous.
It is very glamorous. I take that back.
Florence Villeminot, thank you very much for that spin through the French press.